thank you for joining me today. And I've noticed that you've been in the media a lot. New York Times, Forbes, USA Today, pretty much everywhere. So let me ask you this question. What is happening with the education market? Is this ripe for innovation?
Absolutely. I mean, if I have to pick one market which is ripe for not only innovation but kind of pure disruption, I would pick education to be that market. And it's the hypothesis and the theory is pretty simple. You pick any industry, let it be publishing, let it be media, let it be sports. The entire industry has absolutely dramatically changed in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Education, specifically the classroom-driven education, is exactly the way it looked 100 years ago. And now driven by technology, this has to change, and we are already kind of seeing a dramatic level of improvement and innovation happening in the space.
Yes, and I want to get back to you on that, but actually I don't see you moving. Your image has become static. The disruptive nature of the change that is impending in education. And frankly, I've got 3 daughters, and they're young, and I'm hoping that there would be some change, because I certainly am not keen on spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on their education the way it is currently structured. And it is quite archaic. The way it is currently. So
yeah, I mean, and to give you some interesting example, I mean, if Edison, who kind of invented telegraph system, comes today and look at what is happening in the telecommunication space, I mean, he would be completely lost. I mean, Shakespeare comes back and looks at what's happening in publishing, he would not know where to go. But if a teacher comes back from 100 years ago, they would fit in very nicely. Nothing has changed inside the classroom from 100 years ago. But everything around has changed. And, keep the stats aside for a second, but intuitively it just doesn't make sense that the education system or the way we kind of deliver learning hasn't changed when the entire world around us has changed.
Now, there are soothsayers who say that, there would be much fewer number of universities in the future. You don't need that many teachers, university professors. The lectures can be delivered via the new medium, and one instructor can reach out to thousands of people, and so many different things that we can think of that are possible. Although the one-on-one is still something that is necessary and important. It's just that the nature will change. Like, I think you might have heard of how they're doing in the LA schools based on Khan Academy, that the homework is done inside the classroom, but the training happens at the home. So the model is kind of switched, and it is a lot more productive.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Audacity or Udacity, Khan Academy, how do you see the disruption that you've brought, they have brought, and where do you see yourself fitting between the various new mediums that have emerged?
Sure. So I think in general, there is a lot going on in education technology. And Udacity, Khan Academy, Coursera, BenchPrep, Newton, there are a lot of companies doing a lot of stuff. I think the right question to ask, or the discussion right now, is, can these new models really make a difference in the old system or not? Which of these would actually be the winner, or is Khan Academy better than BenchPrep, better than Udacity? I believe that's still a secondary question. I mean, the adoption rate of these new technologies is still in kind of single digits, I would say. So as far as collectively, Udacity, BenchPrep, Coursera, Khan Academy can make a difference in the masses, I think everyone is going to be is winning. When it comes to specific differences, I think what is happening is a lot of companies are, and if you see the similarities between these companies, all of these companies are actually making a difference outside of the classroom. So the way I look at the workflow, there is a lot of innovation happening, or a lot of kind of commotion happening inside the classroom, and then there's a bunch of stuff happening outside of the classroom. Udacity is trying to kind of get students who cannot go to the standard classroom today. So that's kind of outside of the classroom. Same is with BenchPrep. We want to be with the student every time that they are studying something outside of the classroom. Same is with Khan Academy. Khan Academy, although today they are in the classrooms, but when he started, these were YouTube videos that students were accessing outside of the classroom. So today the revolution is actually kind of happening outside of the classroom first, then it's going to take kind of inside of the classroom.
Innovators are likely to be those who have less of a barrier to switching because they don't have anything serving at that level, be it students in Pakistan or maybe somebody sitting in a coffee shop and not wanting to go to the classroom. Now, the other thing that is possible will happen is many of the things that were previously not taught or perhaps taught in a limited way would become available. So I see that you're engaging with a lot of different publishers, and some of them are standardized publishers who've got lots of content, but there is a lot of other stuff where I want to say, I wish I knew how to do that. I have no idea how to do that particular piece. For example, I'm urged by a certain phenomena and I want to file a lawsuit, but I don't want to go to a lawyer, engage and do the whole process. I'm sure some little thing I can do, but there is no information right now. So a lot of content will become available. Do you see that happening?
Oh, absolutely. So I think the need of non-traditional education is increasing rapidly. And I think the way we define courses or majors or degrees is kind of becoming, archaic on a day-to-day basis. I mean, the kind of jobs that are in the market today, I think majority of them didn't even exist 10 years ago. And that's the speed that's the speed at which kind of the job market or the need for skills is changing. However, the way the colleges are structured, I mean, structurally they just cannot offer kind of new courses on a semester by semester basis. I mean, it's cost prohibitive. It's very difficult to find, teachers for them and so on. And I think the best way to put these courses would be through digital channels like online. One of the courses that we are working on right now, for example, is a course on intellectual law. So intellectual property. Now, in our little world of startups, everyone kind of goes through this process, and the only option, as you kind of called out, is hire a lawyer. But if they could actually go through a 2-month course on intellectual property, they can actually do majority of the work, or at least kind of build a very strong intuition around the subject. So that will happen more and more as soon as kind of in the next 12 months, I would say.
Right. Yeah, some of my physician friends tell me, especially my own doctor, you pretty much have the diagnosis ready, you have studied, you know what's going on. So, and that's possible because the information is there. I go to the doctor because I need the drug or whatever the procedure might be. Otherwise, I'm well aware. So I understand. So I want to ask you something else, switching gears onto the entrepreneurship side of what you've done. Okay, it's best to operate in a field, in an area where there is a lot of demand, pent-up opportunity, and that makes entrepreneurship easier. Yet, it is not easy. You've got competition, and you must have had conflicting priorities, issues, budding issues, thriving issues. So I want to get to the crux of those things. When you thought about starting with your co-founder, what was going on in your head? What were some of the things that were your challenges and preventing you from moving forward, so to speak?
So, in my case, I got a little bit lucky. So I'll tell you kind of my story. So me and my co-founder, his name is Ujjwal Gupta. We met during our undergrad years. We were actually kind of roommates for the first few years. We started kind of a couple of companies while in undergrad, and those were like very small operations. So there was kind of some level of trust and kind of partnership involved already. And since we graduated, we kind of went back and forth on starting the next thing. And for us, kind of the biggest issue was the opportunity cost. I mean, as you called out, he was finishing up his PhD from Penn State University, so he was kind of occupied with that. I was working with Capital One Financial doing corporate strategy kind of work, so I was occupied with that. So the timing and the opportunity cost of leaving all that aside and kind of doing something was very, very, very high. And we just could not kind of get over that. And then in 2009, I was planning to go back to business school. And in December of 2009, I actually knew that I already was admitted to the University of Chicago, and I had 9 months before I was joining or starting the school. And those 9 months were a blessing to me. So I saw those 9 months to be, okay, I know that after 9 months I'll be in school. I'll be in school for 2 years, and that's going to be a green field for me. And I can use these 9 months to do something which, even if it fails, at least it'll be a great learning opportunity. So, luckily I found myself to be in a situation where I had 9 months in front of me and no opportunity cost towards it. And that's when we started the company. So that's
very interesting. This is very interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, opportunity cost is one of the big things that entrepreneurs have to worry about. And sometimes if it's not the opportunity cost, people have even greater risks, such as losing something else that they have built, in terms of financial and resources. So, did you have resource constraint besides the time issue? Did you have any other resource constraint? Money, obviously.
So money was a big issue, when me and Ujjwal were trying to figure out what business to start, I think we had kind of a couple more ideas which were right down our alley. We were actually kind of experts in those kind of subdomains, but all of them actually required a capital investment. We looked into kind of our savings, we looked into what we can get from friends and family. But it all came down to the fact that, how much are we willing to invest in an idea or a concept that, we really kind of were only getting started with. So we actually had to kind of chuck a couple of ideas because of the capital constraint. There was another
confidence in this idea that, this is the idea, we can let go the other two, and this is going to work, or did you have apprehensions?
No. So I don't think it works that way at all. I mean, I actually think that I had a couple more ideas that I was kind of, more excited about. When we started BenchPrep, the concept that we started was very, very, very small. I mean, in fact, the thing that worked with this concept was the fact that it was small, and it did not require a lot of capital investment. And in fact, it did not even require a lot of incremental kind of time from our side because, education was something that we were kind of knee deep into anyway. So, in fact, this was more of a safe choice when we started, definitely not a slam dunk though. And then as we started taking one step at a time and as we started learning more about the education industry, it appeared to us that, I think, we made the right call and it is a slam dunk. But on day one, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's something I hear a lot. Most people are apprehensive about things and they want to know how others have done. What did they feel like? It's not so much so information that budding or prospective entrepreneurs are looking for. They just want some emotional connection. Did you also feel the same way that I'm feeling right now, kind of thing? And so This is interesting to know that it's not a clear path.
And I'll reiterate that the idea is the correlation of a good idea translating into a good business is very weak. I think good idea is a starting point, but it's all about execution and iteration. And, I feel bad now that we wasted 3 months back in 2009, trying to figure out if we would get that slam dunk idea. And I think that's what we were trying to solve for, is this the slam dunk idea? Is this 100% going to work? It does not work that way. I think it's better to start with something that you're passionate about, and the problem is your problem, not someone else's problem. and then take one step at a time and build on top of it towards a real business.
You use the right words, iterative, because you know directionally what you want to do, but you don't know precisely what. And so iteration really helps you narrow down and focus on what you need to do, what doesn't work, and what works. So during this iterative process, were you revenue cash positive, or even making revenue at that point, or were you still pumping in money?
So we started making revenue pretty soon. So what we did was, in 2009 we said, and this is how we started the business. Because of my business school association, I had just finished taking a GMAT exam. And my experience of going through that was horrible. I mean, I had to carry around books, and I was flying coast to coast, and I was lugging books. The experience of studying through a book was not kind of fun at all. And at the same time, I saw these iPhones that everyone was using, and these are the early days of an iPhone, and people were actually seemingly spending a lot of time on these devices. And I saw that, and I was like, this is phenomenal that a device can generate that much engagement on seemingly not important stuff. But here I am, I just took maybe one of the most important exams in my life, and the experience was horrible. So the first product that we came up with was a GMAT prep kind of mobile app. And much to our surprise and delight, we made, I would say, $10,000 in the first kind of 2 or 3 months. And since then, we were kind of cash flow positive and generating revenue.
So right there that it is something that has potential.
Yes, so we made it because we needed it. We made it because my friends needed it. But as soon as we released it, we saw people around 20 countries downloaded the app or kind of purchased the app in the first kind of 40 days. And that was the first aha moment where we realized that, wow, I mean, this is not just what we want, but there are people out there who not only want this, but are willing to pay for this. And that's where it took off. But I mean, even when we were kind of making revenue, we had to kind of iterate literally on a monthly basis. Because as soon as kind of one product is out, one, there are competing products out, and second is, you need to be delivering better and better and better experience along the way. So, we were lucky that the first product was something that worked, but we had to kind of go through at least kind of 50 iterations since that first product.
Right. Yeah. In this case, because obviously it's an opportunity, there are also other people, other companies trying it out. So the speed to market is important. The speed to market, speed to quality, speed to customer satisfaction obviously is all very important. So now, amongst the challenges, so you started out, there will be one challenge is to get funding, hiring people, setting your priorities straight, finding mentors who can guide you. Did any of these things bother you?
All of them. So you nailed it right, that all of them would bother us. So the first was, I think, hiring. So very soon we realized that given that we are making revenue, we should start hiring best mobile engineers, or kind of someone who can actually take care of the product. Both me and Ujjwal are engineers, but we did not write code, so we are not kind of in technology that much. And this is 2009, and hiring a iOS engineer or someone who can actually develop a mobile app was the hardest thing to do. And anyone who could actually develop a mobile app was actually developing a mobile app for themselves. So we spent 2 months trying to figure out if we can hire a CTO. Another 2 months trying to figure out if we can hire a really good mobile app engineer in Chicago. We could not. And at that point, we had to outsource a lot of our technology. So in fact, that was a problem, and we really could not solve it. So we had to kind of go to the alternate route of outsourcing it to India at that point.
Interesting.
We also faced the problem of so first was the hiring problem. Second was fundraising. So we we kind of thought about raising funds, but it was so early on in the mobile app space that none of the investors had kind of formed a hypothesis around how this is going to turn around. Is this going to be kind of a stable business? Is this going to be a fad or a fashion that's going to kind of take off or not? So we talked to a bunch of investors, very early on, and the standard response we got was, "This is fascinating. Let's talk about this in 6 months. Let's talk about this in 6 months." That was a heavy exercise, I would say. But again, the first attempt of raising money failed. So those are the two big problems. The third was also that time I was in business school, so I was doing my MBA. Ujjwal was finishing up his PhD. So the time that we can allocate to this, again, going back to the opportunity cost, balance, was not that much. So we really were only working on this, I would say, 1/3 of our time. And that slowed down a lot
That
of.
also comes to your priorities. I mean, you stuck to your priorities. You got to finish your MBA. He had to finish his doctoral program. You can't leave a doctoral program 5 years down. So
Exactly.
did you struggle with that? That, this is a great opportunity. Do I jump at it, quit business school or quit my doctoral program?
Oh, absolutely. These were like weekly conversations. Absolutely. And the thing was, as soon as we realized that we are making revenue, and at that time we were actually one of the premier education companies on the iOS platform on iPhone. We had to make a decision where it wasn't just an idea anymore. It was a real opportunity, and an opportunity where speed and time mattered a lot. I mean, we had already started seeing some of the established companies coming in with very basic apps, but they were in our space. So the question of him dropping out of his PhD program and me dropping out of MBA was a weekly conversation. But I think it was twofold. So one is maybe culturally it wasn't something that we were kind of okay doing, and second is at least in my case, I was actually deriving a lot of value from my MBA program. Being at University of Chicago, which is a premier business school, getting access to investors, getting access to professors, getting access to the intellectual capital, which was just in the student community, was something that was valuable. So essentially what we decided not to drop out, to kind of take on the expense of kind of spending half of our time on the business school and the PhD program. But then we decided that we need to kind of make sure that we align the business school program and the PhD program towards this goal. So we ended up kind of making a lot of good value out of the time that we spent there.
So
but that was a big conversation.
Like some people have told me, and kind of makes sense, that typically entrepreneurs tend to look at a situation and say, well, how can I make the most out of it? Rather than seeing it as a problem, you figure out a way to leverage it as an opportunity. And that is critical for entrepreneurs to be able to do, because you will have problems left, right, and center.
Yeah, and we had to. It seems like now that in hindsight, when we look at it, at every given step, I think every issue or problem that we had, we were able to kind of convert that into an opportunity. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So first, when we decided that, okay, let's build a mobile app for education, the first thing that we realized was, well, we are not the right people to develop the app. I mean, we have the right concept and we have the right kind of background to do so, but we don't have the technical expertise. So what Ujjwal did was, and going back to the part that it was difficult to hire at that time, Ujjwal knew an undergraduate student at Penn State who was a really good developer, but did not know how to develop mobile apps. And what we did was we actually bought a MacBook, $2,000. We gave it to him and we said, this is your MacBook, keep it. just learn how to develop mobile apps, and after a month, why don't we develop a mobile app together? So that was a risk, and that was kind of pretty bizarre thing to do. But he was good at it. I mean, he took like a couple of weeks to learn how to build a mobile app, came back to us, and together we launched our first mobile app, which was a big success.
No, yeah, indeed. Especially when you're students, you're hard pressed for cash, and but you have access to good student talent. So you leveraged what you were given. You made lemonade out of a lemon. Ostensibly a lemon-like situation. So that's wonderful. In terms of mentors, did you find people? I'm sure at the business school you did, but otherwise, did you have difficulty finding and engaging with mentors?
So, not exactly. I mean, I think the issue was to find the right mentors. But once we found the right mentors, we got a lot of support from them. So initially, I think before I started business school, essentially I reached out to a few people I knew who were, in the corporate world, but kind of running their own divisions, or had kind of started a new segment or launched a new product within a bigger organization, just to kind of brainstorm around what exactly were the kind of things that they looked at. I mean, I got a lot of support there. When I started business school, things changed dramatically. I mean, every professor was eager to help. There was an entire entrepreneurship center. It's called Polsky Center of Entrepreneurship, where we had mentors and access to students or alumni who have actually kind of started companies. So one of the bright spots of all of this was when you're running startup and you reach out to someone who has actually gone through this process before, everyone went over and beyond to help us, give advice, provide any kind of resources, provide any kind of connections to us. So in all of this, I would say the one thing that we actually did not face a lot of issues or any issues with was getting access to mentors and kind of seeking their advice or their perspective on things.
So, in terms of mentorship, you obviously clearly see the value. I mean, it is immense value. It reduces your time to success tremendously. You didn't have a problem. Is it because you knew somehow to reach to the right people, or you happen to have bumped into the right people? What is your advice to others who might be looking for, hey, I need someone to help me, guide me. You've got issues, you've got questions, you don't know the exact answer. Maybe somebody can handhold me for a little while.
Yeah, so I think in general, in the startup community, there is a lot of desire to help. There's a lot of desire to kind of, help others who are kind of 18 months behind you or 2 years behind you in the process. From an entrepreneur's point of view, the biggest thing to do is to just kind of to be out there, to go out there, to put yourself out there, to talk to as many people as possible, and kind of get in the community. Now what is happening is so outside of the Silicon Valley, Chicago, Austin, Boston, Philly, New York, all these are kind of becoming, or in general, there is a lot of kind of ground level startup activity, and there are a lot of clubs and meetups and kind of entrepreneurship centers popping up. So as an entrepreneur, I would actually for an entrepreneur, I would advise three things. One is get involved in the community around you. There are a lot of entrepreneurs in the traditional sense of the word, in the non-traditional sense of the word, but just go out there and kind of get to know more people. Second is, don't be afraid to kind of ask questions. Be very open in talking about your idea. Be very open in kind of accepting the fact that these are the kind of things that you have absolutely no idea about, and be very kind of honest about the kind of feedback that you want from people. And third, I would say is, be creative and respectful about how do you approach this. So, if someone would approach me today, I have limited time to kind of to engage. So every time I see someone approaching me with a very well-established agenda, or someone who has actually done their homework and then reaching out to me, I would also go over and beyond to help them out. So once you kind of go through these kind of three steps, a lot of entrepreneurs would see a lot of response from the community.
Yeah, it's a kind of a tight knit. It's big, but it's still a tight knit community to be an entrepreneur. People feel that connection, the bonhomie, so to speak. It's like the Harley Davidson. You see somebody riding a Harley and you are on a Harley, you wave. And so if someone is a genuine entrepreneur, taking the risk, making the effort, and comes to you with putting in the due diligence, you feel like there is true value, and you want to help. That makes you feel as a mentor feel good. So I think reaching out is not necessarily, you don't have to feel encumbered or somehow inhibited about reaching out. I think it's important to go out there and say, hi, can you help me see things clearly?
Exactly. In fact, I mean, I can speak for myself, but I'm pretty representative of the community. I absolutely enjoy talking to people, or young entrepreneurs who are in the early stages of their career, because everyone makes the same mistakes. Everyone goes through the exact same kind of hassles. And anything that I can do to kind of just call it out and say that do this versus don't do that and save kind of 2 months of time, I would love to do that. Because I was in business school when I went through this process, luckily I was given a structure to begin with. So what I ended up doing was I reached out to alumni of University of Chicago who had started business in the last 2 years. When we were raising money and I had a term sheet, the first person who I called was an alumni who graduated a year ago and had raised, I think, about $4 million in value. And he gave me a very honest and brutal feedback on the term sheet. I mean, it was amazing. And he called the same thing out, and he said that he really enjoyed doing that because, he went through the exact same process 12 months ago, and he got the help. So in fact, people who are actually giving advice are benefiting and kind of enjoying it in the exact same way as people who are actually seeking advice. So it's a very big community, and the more collaboration that is happening is going to be good for everybody.
That is wonderful, Ashish. I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. I think this is going to be a great recording that everyone else will enjoy as well. Before we end up, I want to ask you one other question on the other side, the flip side. So I understand you providing the technology platform, and that's your main forte, and you are also developing relationships with publishers. What do you have to say for publishers? Some of the advice for new publishers or for existing publishers?
So my advice would be to objectively look at what the education industry would be 15 years from now, and work backwards from where we would be in 2020 rather than working forward from where we are today. A lot of these existing publishers are structurally built on the way the industry worked 20 years ago. They're not structurally built for the next 20 years. But they are actually sitting on a really good asset, which is content. Content is king in education. So if they could only figure out what the world would look like 15 years ago and then figure out their strategy towards that, that would be great. For new publishers, I would say everything is going to be digital. Everything is going to be device agnostic, and the value would be over and beyond content. Just content is not going to cut it. It has to be the interactivity, the engagement, the experience, and the data around it. So if someone is starting today, they have to kind of think as to what their value proposition is beyond content and start building infrastructure, start building teams, start building products that would go beyond just the content.
Right. I'm being a publisher. I'm thinking exactly what are you saying, because it's important for me as well to be able to provide this content. And it's just not content. it's not just advice, but it is also can be wrapped around into smaller products. While what we talked about is generic, but what if we talked about something very specific, such as, which we did not talk about, but I wanted to get deeper into mentorship. How does one go about finding mentors? You might have done it one way, some people would do it another way, but then collectively we can come up with a small little program that says half an hour will teach you exactly 10 steps you need to take now to get and find and engage a mentor. Granted, this is the kind of information previously wasn't available, but now can be. So I see your point of view. Hey Ashish, thank you so much. I am glad to have connected and look forward to talking with you again.
Absolutely, Nick. It was a pleasure, and would love to talk more.